My stepmother told my date that I had serious issues because my real mom abandoned me. Then I played the recording of her bragging about driving away all my girlfriends. And my father finally heard the truth. I had been dating Mia for a little over 2 months, and everything was surprisingly normal. Not perfect, not sparkly romantic, just easy, comfortable. I actually liked her. That, in itself, felt like a small miracle. Then came the night I met my father's wife, Clarissa. She had a smile that looked too rehearsed, the kind that doesn't reach her eyes. Her outfit was immaculate, designer, of course, but it didn't disguise the energy around her, the kind of presence that felt like a subtle warning light. She called herself my stepmother, though I'd lived with her for 10 years and never really accepted the title. We were all gathered for dinner in the dining room. My father at the head of the table, me to his right, Mia beside me, and Clarissa across from us, a glass of wine in hand. The air smelled faintly of roasted chicken, lemon, and something floral that made me uneasy. Clarissa leaned toward Mia with a practiced, almost conspiratorial tone. "Just so you know," she said, voice low but deliberate enough for Mia to hear. "He's got serious issues. His real mom abandoned him. You might want to keep that in mind." The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. Mia blinked at her, clearly startled. I felt my stomach twist. I smiled. Calm. Unflustered. Too calm. "She's not wrong," I said softly. Clarissa's eyes flicked to mine, a mixture of triumph and expectation. She clearly thought I'd be embarrassed, flustered, angry, something. But I wasn't, because I had known for years that Clarissa thrived on this. Thrived on controlling perception. Thrived on undermining anyone I cared about. I also knew she'd done this countless times before. Only now I had proof. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "Actually," I said casually, "I have something you should hear." Mia looked at me, confused but intrigued. Clarissa straightened, suspicious. I pressed play. The recording wasn't edited, wasn't dramatized. It was raw. Clarissa, laughing with her friends over coffee, bragging about how she drove away all his girlfriends over the years, and how she knew exactly how to keep him single and dependent. The sound filled the room. Her laughter, her words, the way she described my dating life like a chess game she was orchestrating. My father froze mid-bite. Mia went pale. Clarissa's smugness faltered, just slightly, but enough for me to see the cracks. "I what?" she stammered, reaching for her wine glass like it would ground her. I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch, thick and heavy. Let my father absorb the reality of what had been going on under his nose for years. Let Mia process that I wasn't exaggerating. Let Clarissa feel a fraction of the exposure she so willingly dealt to others. Finally, I said, calm but firm, "I thought you should know. You've been warned." And with that, I set the phone down, leaned back, and waited. The room was tense in a way that no family dinner should ever be. My father set down his fork, eyes wide, jaw tight. He looked at Clarissa as if he had just realized he'd been living with a stranger for the past decade. "Mia," he started, his voice unsteady. "Did you hear that?" Mia's hand went to her chest, and her eyes flicked to mine. She was frozen, trying to process what had just played out. "Yes," I said softly. "You heard it." Clarissa opened her mouth, perhaps to laugh it off, perhaps to lie, but no words came. She wasn't prepared for witnesses. She hadn't anticipated my father, my girlfriend, or me all at once. I I was joking," she stammered finally, voice pitched too high. "I didn't mean." I shook my head. Calm. Ruthless calm. "You weren't joking. You don't joke about someone's relationships the way you did. Not repeatedly, not for years. That's not a joke. That's manipulation." Her lips pressed into a thin line. The kind of line that tries to hide a crack in a mask she thinks is unbreakable. My father ran a hand through his hair. "Clarissa, is this true?" Her eyes darted to me, then to Mia, then back at him. "It's not what it sounds like." "It's exactly what it sounds like," I said. "And I've got the proof." She swallowed hard. For the first time, she looked small. Mia, finally finding her voice, whispered, I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to," I said. "Just hear it. That's enough." My father leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. He looked at me, then at Clarissa. Why would you do this? All these years." Her composure cracked completely. Her voice trembled. I wanted him to. He was too. I don't know. Too dependent. I thought I was helping him. Helping him." The room went silent again. I finally spoke, calm but cutting, helping him by isolating him from any woman who cared enough to actually see him as a person, not a project. Helping him by making every girlfriend second guess whether he's ever good enough. That's not help. That's control. She didn't answer. She couldn't. My father leaned forward, voice low, furious but controlled. Clarissa, you've been undermining him for years. Years. Do you even realize what you've done? I stayed quiet, letting him speak. My girlfriend squeezed my hand under the table, a silent acknowledgement that she finally understood what she was dealing with and why I had never argued, never yelled, never tried to prove anything. Clarissa finally sank back in her chair, defeated, her hands twisting in her lap. The mask was gone. For the first time, I saw the real weight of her actions. And for the first time in a long time, my father looked at me like he was seeing his son, not the child manipulated by his wife. You deserve better, he said quietly. I should have seen this sooner. I failed you. I didn't reply. I just nodded. The acknowledgement was enough. For the first time, the dinner felt like it could end without chaos. Not because the problem was solved, but because it was finally visible. And visibility, I realized, is where change begins. After dinner, Mia and I walked out together, leaving my father and Clarissa behind. The crisp night air was almost shocking after the stifling tension of the dining room. Mia's hand found mine instinctively, a quiet gesture of solidarity. I can't believe she did that, she whispered. And your dad, he didn't even know? I think he suspected, I said, but not the extent. Mia shook her head. That's insane. How could someone brag about that? I shrugged lightly. Some people get a sense of power from breaking others down. I grew up noticing it, but never had proof. Now I do. Her eyes softened. I mean, you always seemed calm about it. Almost too calm. I didn't understand how much of your life she controlled. I glanced at her. It's a defense mechanism. You learn to compartmentalize. Survive. Stay rational when everyone around you is trying to make you feel insane. We walked to my car in silence, the city lights flickering off the wet pavement. For the first time, I didn't feel small. Not because the night had been victorious, but because it had finally been honest. The next morning, my father called me into his study. His expression was grave. I've spent the last night thinking, he said. This stops now. I'm done pretending I didn't know. Clarissa, she won't manipulate you anymore. Not while I'm around. I nodded. I don't want revenge. I just want boundaries. And accountability. He leaned back in his chair, eyes distant. I should have acted sooner. I should have seen her for what she was. But at least you have proof now. I do, I said quietly. And I'm ready to use it if necessary. But I hope it won't come to that. I just need my life back. He nodded slowly. You will. I'll help. We'll make sure this never happens again. Later that week, I called Clarissa. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I played the recording one more time for her. She listened in silence, this time alone, without her friends to laugh with, without the safety net she relied on for years. When it ended, she finally spoke, barely audible. I didn't think it would get out like this. It did, I said. And now you have to decide who you are. You can't control me anymore. You can't hurt anyone else like this. Not my girlfriends. Not my father. Not me. She stayed quiet. And that silence, for once, felt like the right response. Final update. Weeks passed after that night. Clarissa didn't speak to me directly, and I didn't seek her out. My father kept his word. He no longer allowed her manipulations to seep into our lives. For the first time in years, my interactions with him felt unfiltered, honest, unmediated by someone trying to control both of us. Mia stayed with me through it, quietly, without judgment. She didn't try to fix me, and she didn't need me to fight on her behalf. She just understood. That understanding mattered more than any apology or explanation. I spent hours replaying the recordings, not out of malice, but to understand, to process, to remind myself that for years, I had been trained to minimize my feelings, to apologize for being hurt, to doubt my instincts. That, more than anything, Clarissa had taken from me. Now I was taking it back. I set boundaries with her that were firm and unyielding. Any attempt at manipulation, even subtle, would be met with silence, distance, or proof if necessary. For the first time, I realized that I didn't need confrontation or vindication, just the clarity to act when required. My father and I began rebuilding our relationship. There was no dramatic forgiveness, No sudden reconciliation. Just small gestures, calls, dinners, honest conversations. Trust isn't restored overnight, but honesty lays the foundation. Mia and I grew closer, not because of the drama, but because we saw each other clearly, for the first time without masks. We could laugh, argue, and disagree without fear that someone else would poison the perception between us. Clarissa? She remained in her curated bubble, stripped of her power over me, but still herself. She would never admit wrongdoing. She would never apologize. And that's fine. Her acknowledgement wasn't necessary. My peace didn't depend on her. The hardest lesson I carried away was this: abuse isn't always loud. Control isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's the quiet undermining, the small comments, the helpful interference in your personal life. And sometimes, recognizing it, documenting it, and standing firm is the only way to reclaim yourself. I'm not unscarred. I'm not untouched. But I'm stronger, clearer, less willing to bend for someone else's sense of control. And that, ultimately, is enough. I'm rebuilding, not just my life, but my version of myself that I almost lost. The version that doesn't shrink to survive. The version that knows boundaries are love for oneself as much as for others. For now, that is my victory. Quiet, measured, irreversible.